Right, so welcome back to Founders Archives. Today we have Jack Marck, who is currently an associate at Serra Ventures and was formerly a senior director at Generator. He's had a very well-rounded startup experience, from actually being a part of a startup to then getting acquired to then working for an accelerator program and now part of a VC. So with that all being said, welcome, Jack. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
That's good. That's good. Well, super glad to have you. But for listeners just getting to know you, do you mind giving like a 30 to 60 second intro of who you are and what you've done?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of it you kind of covered. So I currently work with Serra Ventures. I have a pretty close relationship with them going back several years. They were the sponsor that brought the Illinois AgTech Accelerator to Champaign and hired Generator, who then hired me to run it. And so I've had a relationship with the partners since then. But then even before that, they were an early investor in Agribol. And so they were familiar with some of the work that I did at Agribol, leading up to the acquisition from Nutrien. Going back a little bit further than that, I like to tell people that my resume is a hot mess. This is probably about the only job I'm qualified for, because there are so many different things that working with startups, so many different things, so many different challenges that founders come across. And one of the things I've been very fortunate in terms of like having done different things and sort of a short professional attention span, so to speak, is accumulated a pretty wide range of things that I wouldn't consider myself to be an expert on, but at least somewhat knowledgeable on. So so that's been pretty helpful. So it's some consumer product marketing, product engineering, product development, and then obviously for the last 5 years, early stage, very early stage, formulation stage, if you will, startups. So.
Yeah. Very well-rounded, as I kind of said in that intro, right? All over the place, right?
Yeah, well, it's certainly all over the place. Yeah.
Either way, the same thing, right? Yeah. So you've built almost your entire career in Champaign-Urbana. Is that correct? Kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I came here at 18 years old. I did an associate's at Parkland on my second try. I got a bachelor's from U of I, and worked for a variety of different local companies. Again, very wide range, and somehow managed to fit them all together to ultimately kind of get, and end up at Serra Ventures, which has just been fantastic. And so yeah, I think there is a lot of opportunity. I mean, I think that it's helpful if you're going to go that route. I think it's helpful to be, a certain level of creativity and open-mindedness about what you can do here can be really helpful to take advantage of whatever opportunity comes up. If you're pretty single-track minded, this is what you're going to do, then obviously those are going to be the only opportunities that are interesting. I think the more flexible you are, the more opportunity there is to kind of bounce around a little bit.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. What made you really hone in on this area, and what made you stay, I guess, after starting here?
To be honest with you, I always expected, up until relatively recently, call it, I don't know, the last several years, I always expected to leave. So I worked for a television station, and I was a professional musician for a few years.
Oh, really?
And you don't stay, I mean, so maybe I go to Nashville to do the music thing, or I go to LA. A friend of mine, a guy that was playing in a band at the same time that I was, he ended up going to LA, doing some stuff for video. He did some audio for for movie productions or video productions, and ended up starting a cover band. And next thing you know, he's on stage. I'm not making this up. Next thing you know, he's on stage with Jack Black. And so it's like, but he did that in L.A. He didn't do that here in Champaign.
Yeah,
and so it was sort of what I found was, so I never made a conscious decision to stay here until I would say really until after I got married about 10 years ago. And we have a lot of family between my wife and I. We have an enormous amount of family. So that's a pretty significant source of gravity for us that keeps us in the area. And one of the things that, and this is like my own sort of pessimism, I always expected to get pulled out of the area. We got bought by Nutrien. Their retail headquarters is in Loveland, Colorado, home of the Rocky Mountain National Park. I would lie if I said I didn't look at houses out there. What would that cost? Whatever. We never pulled the trigger on it. And then I think the big commitment when COVID hit was there will never be a shortage of opportunities that I can't do from Champaign. The irony is I have also never had a remote job since then. And all the work that I've done since then has been focused on this area or with a company that's headquartered here. So even that never really played out. So I finally kind of came to terms with the idea that like it's not just a place that you could get stuck, but it's a good place to be.
Right.
And it may take getting stuck to help you realize that. That was kind of, in my case, it was sort of like I just kept having opportunities here and I didn't have to leave. I didn't have to, you know, and so I didn't.
It just worked out that way, right?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like, I don't know, if I had to do over again and I was more intentional about it, I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, but I think there really is an awful lot of opportunity here that sometimes gets overlooked when you kind of like, by statistics, like there's more companies. Yeah, there's way more competition too. And at the end of the day, if you're not successful right away, your living expenses are going to be a lot higher. So anyway.
Yeah. Do you think there is something to be said about that? Like staying here versus going to Chicago, there still is many opportunities to be had here. Maybe there's more in Chicago, but there's more competition, like you just said, right? Like, you think Champaign is just underestimated in terms of like the powerhouse of what we have here? Yeah,
I think people do kind of tend to overlook the opportunities that are kind of right in their backyard. So I think if there's a city you want to be in for a particular reason, that's one thing. Like if you like skiing on the weekends,
Colorado.
Champaign isn't going to make
That's me right there.
50.
Yeah, no.
You know, I mean, I don't know. I guess there's someplace up in Wisconsin that's like 4 hours away. That's a little tough to make it work on a weekend. So there are certain things that are kind of tricky. But I'll tell you, like within one of the things that I've come to appreciate, and I've had an appreciation for since for a couple of decades now. Within 2.5 hours, I can get to downtown Chicago, Indianapolis, and St. Louis. Within an hour, I can hit at least 3 or 4 large, like, sort of state parks, including one that's like 2,000 acres of something like 35 miles of trails. Like, I mean, people don't really realize that it's that Champaign has that kind of going for it as far as like, and that's sort of outdoor stuff. You know, my wife and I have been to operas in Chicago, ballets in Chicago, children's museums in Indianapolis. Like, you pick a city, you give up all the other ones, right? You pick a city, and now you got to get it's 2 hours to get to some place that you can go hiking or something like that. And one of the things I really appreciate about Champaign is wherever you go here, it's going to take you 20 minutes. To get here, the heart of campus, I came from the northwest corner of Champaign. I had some errands to run up there, and it was 20 minutes. And
no traffic.
No
Chicago.
Traffic. Well, it was a little bit heavier. I think I was the 4th car at a stoplight at one point, which is like as heavy as traffic gets here. And that's in the heart of like, I was up by the mall, and that's like, it's Christmas is coming and all the sales are on,
season.
And that's what traffic looked like today.
Exactly.
Where it's like, man, there's 4 cars in front of me.
So
there's a lot to like about what you have access to, the simplicity when you want simplicity, the peace and quiet when you want the peace and quiet, and the access to things that big cities offer that are frankly not that much further away than if you lived in one of those cities. So.
Yeah. I'm with you. You're gonna have to tell me about those national parks.
Oh yeah.
Because I like hiking, and I did not know there was 3 of them.
There's
that
places
are like an hour from here.
Yeah, there's places where you get 5 minutes into the woods and you'd think you were in like Kentucky or something like that. Like it's pretty cool.
That's crazy. All right. Well, let's kind of move into your experience at Agrible. So I did want to ask you about that. So for the viewers watching, Agrible is the startup he was a part of. So you joined as a product engineer, is my understanding, right?
Yes.
So what were you working on, and maybe in the time leading up to the acquisition by Nutrien,
Yeah.
right?
That's a fun story. So I was hired. To build a drone product. So what we were doing was we were using an off-the-shelf drone and hooking our software into it to download aerial imagery and flight logs, usage statistics. We built one of the most comprehensive and sophisticated drone management platforms that frankly I've seen. I mean, we kept track of the time on drone, time on props, time on batteries, charge cycles, and in addition to all of the mission data that's pretty standard for the industry. And so it was intended to be used for insurance companies to manage their aerial survey operations after a major weather event comes through. Things like in the ag sector we call it green snap, but it's basically when like the wind blows so hard that it flattens, say, corn or something like that. So it doesn't grow back after that.
Yeah,
and
right.
if it happens to a significantly large enough section of the field, you can make an insurance claim against it. And so having that aerial imagery was really helpful for the insurance companies we were working with. What was exciting about that was I started in October 20-something, I think. There was a mobile app developer, full stack engineer that started at the same time, and we shipped version 1 of that software in March. And I had the good fortune to work with a just stellar group of folks. It's a mobile developer, a front-end developer, a back-end developer who I believe is still a Nutrien, and a couple of folks on the science side that built our map building software for that. So we had a pretty good sized group of people that were on it. Five or six people, I think, that all told that touched various parts of it. But to get a product that complex turned around and in the customer's hands within a few months was a really pretty cool accomplishment. And the longer that I'm in ag, the more I appreciate within a year of that, we had surveyed over 1 million acres, which is a big number. Even if we had to go back and rebuild it now, it would take even less time because so much of that stuff is available off the shelf. But getting to 1 million acres was a big milestone for us, and that was something that was really exciting. And then leading up to the acquisition, the drone product, we'd kind of gotten to a point to where it didn't need as much attention, and we'd kind of turned it over to our sales team, and they were kind of running with it to build out a customer base for it. I moved over to a project that we had as a joint development project that we had with a very large CPG consumer product. It's a household name, but I worked with them on a project, and I got to do some traveling. So I got to go to Uruguay, Mexico, Brazil, and South Africa. So that was really exciting. Wow. I left my passport under a mattress in South Africa. So that was a little panicky moment there. So, but got it back.
Not good.
Managed to leave the country,
that's
obviously.
Good.
Not still there.
Yeah, right.
But that was a really interesting project too, because it's one that startups, I got to kind of see on the other side of the table, working with an accelerator, what it's like from having partnered with a large corporate. And it was a large multi-million-dollar contract that we had with them. And when you really get down to it, you try to extract what was the value of that contract, it's less obvious because it's not, it took work. What did we build? How did it contribute to the exit? When Nutrien bought the company, this was not something that was a priority for them. It's not a product that they're involved with. So how did it contribute to the exit valuation and overall enterprise value? And these are things that are not straightforward questions to navigate for startups, and it's something that I was able to kind of draw on is talking to startups that were like, oh, we got a call from this big company that wants to work with us. How do we move forward with this? Should you is the first question, and then how to make it turn out in a way or steer it in a direction that builds enterprise value beyond just whatever they're paying you. So
Yeah. Well, it's a huge decision in a number of ways, right? And all the ways a company is valued are not necessarily monetary, right? So their people, their, expertise, all that good stuff.
yeah.
So it's hard to your point, it's hard to judge an exact value of a company in that acquisition. Well, I bet it is. I've never personally dealt with that, but in that acquisition process, I wanted to ask you, what was it like being a part of the company being acquired? Like, did a lot of things change? Was it a worse environment for you?
I don't take a lot of time off.
Yeah.
I mean, an average amount. I guess maybe a few weeks a year. I took a day off to take my oldest to the City Museum in St. Louis. And then I got an email
Love
like,
that
hey,
place.
we've got an all-hands call the morning I literally just took the one day. And like, hey, we've got this all day, or we've got this all-hands call that you got to be on. I was like, this is just like, take a day off. Go figure. Like, this is the day we got to do an all-hands call. And it was when they announced that we were being acquired by Nutrien. So well worth the call, like getting on or whatever.
Yeah.
It was very exciting news. None of us had really ever been through. I don't think anyway. At least the folks that I worked closely with, none of us has really been through that. And I was on a quick wins team that we looked at what are some of the things that provide meaningful value to Agrible's customers. How do we get it in the hands of Nutrien customers as quickly as possible, like within 6 months? And so there was a lot of urgency. There was a lot of traveling. I think I was in Loveland every few weeks for a while, and collaborating with another person who was coming in from Canada. So there was like I said, a lot of travel, a lot of collaboration before it was cool. This was 2018, so a couple years before COVID. That we had some critical people on that team that were working, myself included, that were working remotely. And one of the things that is very difficult in an acquisition is the union of two cultures, startup culture and $40 billion publicly traded company culture, and figuring out how to fit those things together in a way that can be productive. We had two initiatives. One of them was successful. One of them, frankly, wasn't really. And it had taken us a lot longer to kind of get navigated than what we had originally targeted. And through that process, we really were able to learn a lot about sort of like how to navigate a large organization. It's very different. What's the same, what's different. So I think that was a learning experience. Obviously, Nutrien's a very large company, largest company I've ever worked for, and that comes with its own benefits. There's a ton of stability. Well, where does that stability come from? Where does that come from? The stability at a company like that comes from the fact that you can rely on it to do certain things. That is not always very compatible with disruption, and startups are all about disruption. So,
right.
if you like stability, then a large company is a great place to be. If that's sort of something that you feel like you need for your own security, your own mental health, whatever. But if you are kind of crave a certain pace or disruption or sort of level of activity that is inherently unstable, then that can create some tension, which is ultimately what sort of like really helped me learn about myself and during that period of professional growth that ultimately led to the accelerator. That like I don't thrive in chaos, but I really enjoy like sort of eradicating chaos, if that makes sense.
Like making sense out of the nonsense?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's sort of like I'm the kind of person that if you hand me a tangled ball of string, it takes every ounce I have in me not to untangle it.
Okay.
There are people out there that I feel like, I bet I can make this even more tangled. And those chaos makers, like, that's kind of tricky. And so I don't, like, again, like I don't enjoy the chaos. I think I thrive in it a little bit, but because of how much I enjoy sort of untangling things and taking something that is messy and finding a way to extract some sort of order out of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, you're in the right place then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
How did your role change, or your responsibilities change when you transitioned to Nutrien? If you want to quickly detail that.
There was more structure that was involved.
Yeah.
So everything that we did, I would say, was there were not a ton, but a little bit more oversight. There were more voices around the table, and there was a lot more. I would say I learned a lot about managing up and helping people that are in roles of management roles, leadership roles, understand what they need to understand in order to be able to do their job effectively, and that means a lot of communication.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to do that as much at Agrible because we were already so
Connected.
yeah, exactly. So so connected. The touch points were higher frequency, almost to the point of you don't even notice them. And then the knowledge of the customer was something that was shared by everybody because it's like, I think at the time of acquisition, Agrible had something like 55 employees that all had a pretty shared understanding of the customer. Now, when you scale that up to a larger digital team where you're hiring people that are really good software engineers that have never been on a farm, you're hiring somebody that manages the software engineers that's never been on the farm.
Yeah.
And you're trying to explain to them why this data model is very complicated,
Right.
because it has to be, and they're trying to simplify it because that's the right thing to do from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah.
And they're trying to move fast, but they're moving fast in ways that don't make sense until you have a foundation. So, and why is that? Is it because they want to break things? Of course not. It's because there's a level of understanding that has to be achieved in order for everybody to be able to move forward at an appropriate pace with the appropriate level of understanding. And everybody wanted that. That was one of the things that I will say that, like, in post-acquisition, everybody was pulling in the same direction as best we could. In order to pull together in a coordinated way, we needed a high level of visibility and coordination that you have to be more intentional about when the organization is bigger. When the organization is small, it just kind of happens.
Yeah.
It comes up the potluck or the water fountain or whatever.
Yeah.
With a distributed workforce, with a large distributed workforce, that becomes immensely more complicated.
Yeah.
So
communication just must be so much more difficult. There's more people, but also in different places, and you have to communicate like what your vision is for Agrible, right?
Yeah, and it's really the intentionality. You have to kind of acknowledge that, like, the intentionalities. You have to kind of unwind your assumptions that everybody should know this.
Yeah.
You very quickly learn that very few people might know that. And then you have to be able to communicate that knowledge in a way that isn't condescending, because that doesn't go well.
Yeah.
So
not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. But why did you end up leaving Nutrien and going to Generator?
So that is a very, I think, like, looking back on the trajectory of my career, that played heavily into something that, when I talk to people from larger communities, that Champaign is very uniquely strong in. So I was kind of looking at what, a long-term career at Nutrien or a company like Nutrien would look like. I'd been in the role for a couple of years and was kind of ready to make a change. And I talked to a couple of headhunters. I wasn't really aggressive about it, I guess, and so I was kind of lobbing, like, I'm not really interested in moving on unless I move on to something amazing. And this managing director job for the Illinois AgTech Accelerator popped up. And I was like, not qualified for that, but whatever. It doesn't cost me anything to put an application in. But at the same time, I want to come back to the, what we were talking about as far as champagne. At the same time, I started crashing every single event at Enterprise Works that I possibly could. Because, so I knew some friends of mine from a previous job that had taken a sales role. One of them had taken a sales role at a startup. I knew that Agrible had gotten its start in Enterprise Works. And it was effortless to do that. Nobody was kicking me out. Nobody was like, why are you here? I'm like, I work for a big $40 billion company. I just want to hang out with startups. Like, nobody really questioned that. Yeah. Nobody was judgy about it. I don't know that anybody even paid enough attention to care. and that was kind of my opportunity to start kind of getting into thinking about what it would be like to work with startups. And it was one of the things that kind of gave me the confidence to even apply for the job at Generator. Confidence is not the right word, the motivation. And so when I did end up getting the job at Generator, the payback, or the kind of like, I guess the callback, the continued partnership with the folks at Enterprise Works, Research Park, and a couple of the other entrepreneurship groups on campus. There's one at the Institute for Genomic Biology that's really good. And then some of the tech transfer people. I mean, you start talking to these people and like, this is a level of sophistication you don't see at every university. You may not see at most universities. The sophistication and experience and just the years of doing this job at our Enterprise Works here in town is something you just won't find that at very many other schools. And so they think that's something where like I kind of wish I'd taken advantage of that more when I was a student, because I didn't even really, frankly, when I took the job at Agrible, I didn't even think about like, I'm taking a job at a startup. I was like, I'm taking a job that somebody offered me was really kind of what was on my mind. And so, that transition to Generator, what made me want to leave, what empowered me to leave, why I felt supported, and why I felt like it was a good thing to do, really does kind of tie back to the broader things that are happening and have been happening for many years here around entrepreneurship. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And what did that transition feel like to you? Or was it, I mean, obviously it was the right choice, I think, for you, but like, what was your experience transitioning from working to a company and then working directly with startups, right?
So, going from Generator to Serra Ventures, just with, this year, is the first time that I have stayed in a career and a profession while changing jobs.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason why I bring that up as an answer to your question is because for most of my professional career, I mentioned before, sort of a short attention span as it relates to like professional stuff. I had changed jobs and or changed professions and or industries, sometimes all of the above, every time I got a new job.
Right.
And part of that just has to do with sort of like, I have a deep curiosity. I like things to be new, fresh, and interesting. Working with an accelerator, I'm working with 10 new companies a year. So instead of one new company every 2 to 3 years, I'm getting 10 new companies, 5 new companies every 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think I found my limit. I think that scratches that curiosity.
That was too much, yeah?
Pretty effective. Not too much,
okay.
But I was like, this is a lot. This is like, I feel like after an accelerator program, it's like you stepping off of you get tossed off of the Bronco buck and somebody hands you a belt because you managed to stay on for 8 seconds. Like, it really is a wild and crazy
just thrown
ride.
to the wolves, yeah.
I mean, and a lot of that is because at the time I joined Generator, so the organization has tripled in size since I joined in 2020. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, we were still kind of figuring out. Generator had run several accelerator programs and had a lot figured out. There was a lot of material I was able to lean on when I got hired. And so that was really good, but I was also given a lot of latitude to develop some of my own content along with that based on what my experience had been, and then expanding on that with every cohort that I ran after that. And so that experience gave me a ton of ownership into what the outcomes were. a close relationship with the founders, that became something that was very core to what I love about the work that I do. Working very closely with founders is my favorite part of the job. And being able to try to offer a different perspective, drawing on whatever weird thing I've done that might be relevant or might not be, but being able to draw on some of that to sort of like offer it to the founder in a pretty non-threatening way. It's not like you got to take my advice, but if you're willing to hear me out and I'm willing to share what I know, maybe we get to something that makes sense, or we can find some way to make it fit or to extract some knowledge or learning that works for the specific issue that we're trying to work through. And so that was the pace that happened at, the pace that I was able to finally sort of start to evolve some of the things that have been nagging in my mind around corporate performance and performance management when it relates to business for many, many years, going back even as far as the consumer marketing that I did. Being able to sort of like expand on those things and see how they play out and work with founders that were willing to tolerate some of that was some of the best, has been to date, and continuing the best experience I've had as best professional years of my life, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, the connections and people is a big reason that I'm working on my own startup too. So I understand that, the people aspect of entrepreneurship, I think, is huge, and it's a really big part of it. So, it sounds like from your perspective as well, it's a big reason to why you stay in this space, right?
Yes.
Or you keep coming back.
Yeah.
So, I'm just kind of curious. What are some of the most interesting or memorable founder stories you had from Generator? You were there for 5 years, right? So, some interesting connections, or maybe some success stories that you see today still? I don't know.
Yeah, so there was one company. So I'll call him out because he's still in the area. But Ernest Agriculture went through our G-Beta program in 2022. Eddie Mejia is the CEO of that company. And then Gabe Price is the other co-founder, and so those guys came through our program in 2022, and Eddie embodies the single most important characteristic for a CEO, which is tenacity and an absolute obsession with sales. Eddie will close a deal honestly, with integrity, at whatever it takes to close that deal. And so, and you the honesty and the integrity part's really important. Founders go to jail sometimes if you don't have that. We got to see that just a year or so ago, I guess.
Yeah.
Definitely. But Eddie is the absolute example of that. And we've had other founders. There's another company out of Canada that we worked with, IntelliCulture. The CEO of that company is Cole Powers. Same thing. I mean, he has stories about traveling up and down the West Coast. They work with a lot with specialty crop that grows out that way, up and down the West Coast, making hundreds of sales calls, in-person sales visits. COVID hits, he's got to find another way to do it. And that's a company that has continued to do very well. Serra is an investor in that company. And that was a really exciting team to work with. When we invested, they went through our investment program. When we invested, that allowed them to bring their third co-founder on. Their technical founder quit his job. And then all three of them lived off of the money that we invested in, which is terrifying because it wasn't a ton of money.
Yeah.
But they made it work. They raised some additional money, and I don't think Cole eats ramen anymore. Maybe he never did. And so that's been an exciting one to grow too. And there's a moment in every single company that comes through the cohort. There is that moment, hopefully more than one. But there are those moments where, I take the job very, very personally. We ask a lot through the accelerator. We ask a lot of the founders that we work with, time-wise. And so this is 2 hours. They spend 2 hours a week with me, and I have to show them that 2 hours was time well spent, or else they shouldn't be spending it with me.
Yeah.
and I got to
Right.
do that every week for 12 weeks
Right.
for our investment program. And so I think I could point to moments where there was an impactful discussion, or some step forward that they were able to take that kind of came out of that, and or even a discovery that they made, and I was there to witness it.
Yeah.
And that is, man, that is fuel, that's gas for your tank that'll last, you know, for a long time, being able to kind of like call back on those things. So there's a couple of specific examples, but really every company that's come through our accelerator, there are those examples of getting to see those companies grow and discover, learn more about their customer, learn more about their market, and be able to continue to develop this vision of the future that we're just now starting to get a glimpse of.
Yeah. I mean, to be that person who ignites a bit of a spark in somebody or gives them a little push in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
And then to see them like do great things.
And sometimes, I mean, I've been on calls where we didn't talk about the customer, we didn't talk about the business, we talked about how do you balance all of this and still have time for family, for other priorities that you have. What do you lean on? What are the resources that you use to make sure that this whole process doesn't drive you crazy? And sometimes in those moments, the founder needs somebody who will listen without judging, who isn't going to keep that in mind when they make an investment or choose not to. And I think that that's something that all founders need to have. They need to have that support group and support network that enables them to have an outlet when through the good times and the bad times.
Yeah. So you would say the life part of the work-life balance is something that should still be held at high importance through the startup space.
The short answer is yes, but not really. Most founders, like, it's not particularly healthy. I mean, if you think about working on a company that is your obsession, it can become, and maybe even by some people should say that it should become, this always on obsession. And I think one of the worst things that, one of the worst mentalities for a founder to have is this idea that it's a 9 to 5 and you have off time. And I've been through this, a few projects that I've memories of working on projects into 2 o'clock in the morning. My employer had no idea I ever did that. But it was a project that I was very passionate about, getting up, even recently for stuff that I'm working on with Serra Ventures, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, like, we could solve that problem with this, and rolling over, grabbing my phone, half asleep, pounding it out on my phone, putting it down, going back to sleep. 10 minutes later, oh, but we could also do it this way, and rolling back. I mean, there is this concept of sort of like, if you're going to do great things, it's going to come at great effort. And if you're going to build amazing companies, it's going to be because you put an insane, unreasonable, by some standards, unhealthy amount of work into it.
Yeah.
And the only reason why it's worth it, it's not because you get a huge payout at the end of it, but the reason why it's worth it is because you can make a vision happen that nobody else can. And nobody else is going to do it if you don't do it. And if you can continue to make progress at that, then it becomes worth it. But the price is extremely high. It comes at a personal price. It comes at it is not but I don't know. I mean, a lot of founders I know will go back for seconds after that, knowing that that's what they get into.
Yeah. But you can't ever satiate that like need to just like.
It kind of goes back to what we were saying about the corporate, about like, if you crave stability, startups are not your thing. Yeah. Like, there's just, but if there's something about, I don't know, people do unhealthy, stupid stuff all the time. People climb mountains without ropes. I can't, I like to rock climb, but I won't do it without ropes. And I have respect for people that do. People jump out of perfectly good airplanes. I've done that a couple of times. And it's like people, like, there are risk takers out there that do things just for the sheer entertainment of it.
Yeah.
You know? skydiving, motocross racing, car racing. Like, these are dangerous things that will kill you if you mess it up. Sometimes they'll kill you if you don't, just because of things that you don't foresee. But we do it anyway, because there's something about the thrill of pushing yourself past the limit. It's why we have Ironman competitions. It's the history of that. 3 people that all were in different disciplines, for the story that I heard anyway, all were arguing over whose sport was harder. And so they came up with one that was all of them. Why?
That's the hardest
because
one.
there's something about pushing your personal limit past where you think you can go that, as painful as it is in the moment, as hard as it is in the moment, and whatever sacrifice it took you to get there, that moment where you're on the other side of it, and you can look back at something you accomplished, hopefully, you can look back at that and say, we learned some things, and maybe we could have done some things better, and maybe it's exhilarating when you come out, and maybe it's not. There's an awful lot of baseball teams, only one of them wins the World Series, but they all play 162 games or whatever it is. They all fight hard, most of them right down to the wire, especially this year. But and only one of them walked away with all of it. So for the rest of them, was it a waste? Is that really how you want to think about it? Like,
Right.
is that even the right way to think about it? And so I think even on the tail end of even a failed startup, I think that there is a certain amount of I would hope that there's a certain amount of satisfaction that there's some level of pride that founders can take in the fact that they were courageous in a way that just not very many other people, not your average person, can do that. So, yeah.
That tenacity, right?
It is, but even beyond that, I mean, I think it's that a failed founder has still accomplished more than in those years than some people will accomplish in their entire lifetime. You're going to learn things that you might not learn any other way. You're going to come out of that with knowledge you can't get any other way. And it's something that nobody will ever be able to take away from you, that experience, the ups, the downs. And hopefully there are some people along the way that those relationships will last you the rest of a lifetime too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something startups really need to hear too, because so many fail, right? But the importance is that you tried and that you put your all into it, because you're going to get valuable experience whether you make it or you don't, right? And then you just move on to the next thing. If you fail, right? Yeah,
and there's a really, I live here obviously, but you got to find a place where you can do that. You got to find a place where you can do that, and you're going to find those opportunities to get the support that you need and to form the relationships and bonds that you need to be successful. And I know there are many places in the country you can do that, but I can tell you with 100% confidence that Champaign is one of those places. You don't have to travel to do that, and that's something we're sort of like, are you going to get that someplace else? I think that's worth thinking about, for all the advantages, the proximity to investors and things like that you can get in other places, sure, but there are some other things you're going to need that you may not find as easily. So, yeah, there is a very extraordinary network here, is what I've noticed. So, I agree. Well, Jack, that is kind of do it for today. So, if there's a place that people can follow your journey or connect with you, where would that be? Yeah, so I've got an active LinkedIn page, and I post there periodically. And I'm pretty good about checking messages and whatnot. So perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You had some serious insights, so we'll definitely be getting some value out of this podcast for sure. But thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. It was a great time. But that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of Founders Archives. Until next time, stay curious.